Well, guys, we're getting ready to wrap up this conversation around fatherhood with part two from a woman's perspective. So come on by, sit back and relax and join me on the conversation with Corinthus Alston. See you there. Come and listen, laugh, and link up on real life topics and subjects that matter to you here on the conversation with Corinthus Alston. Well, we are back. Today I have a special guest. She's coming from the podcast Unapologetically Fierce with Faith. She is one of the tribe members on that podcast. Her name is Myrna, and I asked her to come and talk to me about her thoughts on fatherhood. Should we celebrate Father's Day? Hey, we need love too. All right, we need love too. But again, I want you guys to give her a big hand clap. My friend, and she's a little spunky too. So you guys just watch out. All right, come on, Marno. Let's get to this. Let's get to this conversation. Hey.
Hi, Corinthus. How are you?
I am doing good. I'm excited that you're on the show.
I'm excited. I'm excited to be here. So thanks for having me.
I was able to get one of you guys on here. I've been trying. So you know what? I'm just going to just jump on into this conversation. So I recently been, out there on the internet and YouTube and stuff, and there was this thing where I ran across where some women felt that Father's Day was just overrated. It was just overrated, and that fatherhood, because this just happens to be a single mother, with that, we're doing that job too. But what my question is for you, do you think Father's Day is overrated?
No. I think we don't do enough to celebrate fathers, just as a society in general. I think it's not overrated. I think we probably could do a lot more to support our fathers who are out there doing amazing things for their family. I mean, and there are plenty of them. Sadly, they go unnoticed and sometimes overshadowed because there are a great deal of single moms out there like myself who are carrying the load. But no, I do not think it's overrated at all. I think it's a very important holiday.
Okay, so and again, so I want to get your perspective on this, right? And I've interviewed a couple of women, and I've got different perspectives. So my thing is that, do you think having a father or a father figure, uncle, grandfather,
Granddad,
is important? Yeah, grandparent is important in the development of your child.
I think so.
Do you think think that's important?
I think it's important. I don't think it's the only way to raise a child. I mean, I think lots of people come from homes where where it is just mother figures or maternal figures, and they turn out just fine. But I think for the development of a child or a family in general, I think it is important to have a father figure and have that male perspective on life, because it's such a big part of society. I mean, we live in a culture or in a world where 50% female, 50% male, roughly. You're going to be in a workforce with other individuals who are the opposite sex. I'm speaking from the woman's perspective. So I think it's definitely important to have that figure in the family dynamic in some ways. So sometimes granddads, uncles, or even friends, very, very close friends of the family that can play that role. But I think it's a healthy thing to have that that point of view in your life. Absolutely.
Okay. Now, this is going to be an interesting question. So I'm really curious how you're going to answer this. All right. So, as a man, we see fatherhood from a whole different perspectives. Okay. Some men see fatherhood as just being a provider, financial support. Some see fatherhood as being, I showed up for the game. Okay. No, I'm just being very realistic.
Yeah.
And then some is like, that fatherhood, I'm a protector and I'm that protector. So with that all being said, do you think that do you think it is important from a mother's perspective, again, single, divorced, married, regardless, do you think it's important that the mother supports that person or father or that person, as we were talking about, who is fulfilling or acting in that role towards the towards the child?
Yes. Okay, yeah, I think I think it should be a partnership. And when two people come together to have children, whether that's planned or not, which lots of times it's not the case. But I think once the child is involved, I think it should be a partnership between those two individuals of how to bring up the child. Some of that really just comes down to, as your podcast is so very well puts it in such a great way, which is the conversation. This is how you communicate, having these kind of conversations with your partner and figuring out what the dynamics are going to be. So there are those parents who, they check that box of being a financial provider and that's it. And I think a lot of times where the conflict happens is because maybe the other party is thinking like you need to be plugging in and doing more than just providing, right? But if you have this understanding that that's it, I've checked that box, I've done my job, now we're going to have some conflicts. I think it's important to have that conversation and figure out whether or not you plan to have a family or not. Just kind of figure out, what are you bringing to the table? What am I bringing to the table? But then supporting one another in that, because, it may very well be a situation where this other party hasn't been modeled for them and they don't know how to be that supportive dad that comes in after you've had a long day and sits at the dinner table and talks to their kid. Like for a lot of dads, especially mine growing up, that was like he had a tough exterior, it was very soft on the inside, but he had a tough exterior. So he wasn't ever going to sit down with me and let me cry on his shoulder, but he was a great provider, right? So I think for my mom, she understood that about him and was able to support him as best as she could, with that, with the fact, so she was, the warm one, the one that we went to when we needed to talk things out. That makes sense. But I do think it's important for the partner, whether you're married or not, for the mother of the children to be very supportive of the dad. I think if your child is what your focus is, right, and it's about the best interest of the kid, then that's going to come easy. The supporting the other party, you would hope anyway, right?
Okay, so I'm going to ask you, what advice would you give us on father? I know, right? Isn't that sort of weird? Right? I'm like, wait a minute. From a mom point of view,
yeah, that's a good question. Right? I'm glad you asked, because I don't know what I'm going to say. Think about it.
And here's what I mean. You're right. So I'm 50, and so this hits me all the time because I have like my son. He's like 4, right? And I can count the number of times my father hugged me, or told me he loved me. You know what I mean?
Right. Mm-hmm.
And I find that like my wife, she's I like, for instance, I'm a big teddy bear, right? Yeah, I have a big bark, but I realized I didn't understand how important that was until you have a daughter 30, but from a boy perspective, how important that was to let him hug him and let him know that you love him, and that what we call that mushy stuff, right?
Right.
Those non-manly things. So let's say you have a younger brother, or a friend or something like that. I mean, what would you, or recommendations or suggestions? What would you tell dads? What would you tell dads? Like how would you tell dads, how can they be more engaging when it comes to their children?
I think sometimes maybe the rough exterior thing and the not being able to have that mushy stuff happen, a lot of times comes from being afraid of being vulnerable. I think anyway, this is my perspective on it. But I think what I would tell especially a new dad who hasn't had children yet, that your children light up when you're around, right? Like they think that you're everything, especially the really, really younger kids. as they grow up and they start to, have their own personalities and stuff, they may see you a little differently, but still in all, it's this unconditional love that comes from your children. So I think, understanding that you can be mushy with your kids and you're never going to offend them or hurt their feelings, or they're not going to think any less of you, is important, but also knowing that they do need that. And I think identifying with that part of your childhood, like my dad wasn't that way and I wish he was. I accept who he was and I'm good with it. I love my dad very much. He's now passed, but I'm good with the relationship that we had, but I wish that we had that, right? So I think knowing that if I were a man, I would want to make sure that my children didn't go without that, having that, I call it the soft place to land, so if you're having a rough day, I use that as an example, but like just being able to come in and talk to your dad and knowing it's an open door and he's never going to judge me, he's always going to be there for me and give me sound advice, that kind of thing. But just knowing that your kids love you so much and they're not ever going to think any differently of you if you're mushy with them, or even emotional, just like seeing a man cry. I can count on less than one hand how many times I saw my dad cry, and sadly it was at funerals. Like I lost a few of my siblings. Once. So
yeah. I can count once that my dad just once, and it was a tear. It wasn't even crying. It was just a tear.
Just for one escape. He probably did his very best to keep it back. And
and then he turned to the side, so you could barely get the tear in and stuff of that, of that nature. And so, so.
Well, I think that signals to children, like, it's not okay to be sensitive, right? And I get where it comes from the male perspective, especially that generation that probably both of our dads came from. I'm 41. My dad lived to be 75, but that was a couple years ago. And I think I get where that came from, but I also feel like this is, the world's changing, and I think it is important for our sons, especially, to see that it is okay to be emotional. Like, that makes you human. Spoiler alert: we all have emotions, right? So it's just that some of us are really, really good at tamping it down, which I don't think is healthy. So that's another conversation.
Okay. So let's talk about Father's Day. See, that's like one of my pet peeves. We always just get a tie or a shirt.
I was gonna say, are you gonna say you got a tie a couple years in a row? Yeah,
it's true though. Tie. I want something good. I'll give me an Xbox. Okay.
Sure. Yeah.
Golf
Why not?
Clubs, right.
Okay.
So
I'll start the petition. I think you need an Xbox. I think dads should get Xboxes and PlayStation 5s or whatever they need.
See, that's what I need. Okay. So and the reason I bring it up is because, and it's funny when you think about it, right? There are like no songs about Father's Day or just dads. You got songs about mothers, you got everything, and so and I understand mothers are a very integral part of a child's life, and you guys go through some stuff. You guys take that call that emotional burden that we are scared to death of, right?
Yeah.
And to sort of kind of like hold it together, right? For you and for everybody and for the child. But I'm just like, come on, we need some love too.
Sure. I 100% agree.
We need some love.
So you have a pet peeve. Yeah. I think what happens is that sometimes, it really just depends on, it might be unfortunate that Mother's Day comes right before Father's Day, right? So it's probably a little bit of like reciprocation. Like how thoughtful were you on Mother's Day for a lot of moms? Not me personally. My only excuse was that my now ex-husband's birthday is sometimes it's that same week, so sometimes it'll land right on exactly the same day. So it could be a lot to try to honor both of those very special occasions. My birthday's the day after Christmas, so we kind of always looked at it like, my birthday kind of lumps up with Christmas, his lumps up with Father's Day, so we would just try our best to honor both holidays together, if that makes sense. So like I just understood that for my birthday and Christmas, it would be, relatively small in comparison to Christmas, and same thing with him and his birthday and Father's Day. But I did my best to try to make sure that he felt appreciated, and I still do. He's the father of my children, and we have a great relationship. But I'm with you. I do agree that I think men probably those really, really connected dads who are there working just as hard as mom. I feel like And I shouldn't even have to qualify it. Dads in general deserve the accolades, deserve all of the attention, and they should have a day. So I'm with you there. I think it's important to give a gift that really says thank you, for all that you do.
See, I feel better now. I'm feeling good about this. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm really feeling good.
What's important is, what does your partner think? And maybe the perspective sometimes in the family is different. And maybe if you grew up in a household where dads were just kind of like a cog in a machine and not really very important, then maybe, some women enter relationships just kind of thinking, yeah, mom's everything. She's the star of the show. As you mentioned, keeping everything together, which is generally true for most families, I think. But that doesn't mean that dad isn't just as important. I think it's important to know your partner or the person that you had children with and understand where they come from, how they view fatherhood.
Yes.
These conversations need to happen, hopefully before there are children involved, but especially once there are kids in the family.
Well, thank you. So this conversation that we're having, do you think there's like value in it? Because again, the reason why I wanted a woman's perspective, because I think sometimes, like when I talk to other guys, like I talked to some guys about fatherhood in different aspects, and I had the dad who he just became a dad. He like, what am I doing, right?
Yeah, good question.
But I wanted to give the listeners that, hey, you know what? There's a different component. There's the way that we see it, but you guys play a big part of that, and there's the way that how women see fatherhood in respect to it, helping raise the children. So I hope you think this conversation has value.
It does. I really think it has. I think we don't do it enough, to be quite honest. I think the opposite sexes have their defined roles a lot of times, and that's it. Everybody just kind of falls in line behind that, and then we don't spend enough time, whether it's, in a platonic friendship or, relatives or husband and wife, ex-husband and ex-wife, etc. I think it's important to have these conversations. I think they are valuable and they don't happen enough. So that there's a clearer understanding of what everybody's expectations are, and that way no one's let down.
Exactly. I mean, I'm telling you, thank you, Renna, for coming on. But I want you to tell people about Unapologetically Fierce. Okay, I got you here. Sure. I want the people to know what you guys are doing.
Have a great time.
Just let them know, like what you guys are talking about, what you guys are doing.
Yeah, so we're a tribe of 4 individual women, led by our friend Faith, who's amazing. And she put together this podcast, and we're 4 women from 4 different walks of life. We have a lot in common, but a lot of differences as well. And we cover topics that are just, I think really relatable and important. So just right now we have been recording some episodes on self-care and why it's important and different aspects of that. So, what fitness is about, what mental health is about, that kind of thing. But we cover topics like, relationships and the dynamics in relationships, like between mother and daughter and females, peers and friends, things like that. So just important topics, but from different perspectives. I think that's how I would put it. And then we have some fun conversations as well. So conversations about, relationships with men, and, my favorite, one of my favorite episodes is about the F boy. I won't use the word, but, so, lots of fun. We sip our tea.
And some drinking. You got to put the drinking in there too. There is some drinking going on.
Occasionally glasses of wine, 1 or 3 or maybe 4. And then we spill the tea. So that's our podcast. It's a lot of fun. We're having a lot of fun recording and having these conversations. And I really hope you'll check it out and come hang out with us.
Wow. Well, again, I really appreciate you taking out the time. Now, I got some more upcoming subjects that are deep, that I might ask you to come back and just talk to me about. Especially there's one I'm thinking that you might be good about. Self-care. Self-care. And most people think self-care is just what is lopsided from a woman's perspective. But self-care is really everybody. It's the kids, it's you, it's men, it's everyone needs, especially, you're in the house 24/7. You're seeing the same walls. You're not seeing your friends, your family, your loved ones.
Yeah.
These days
it's super crucial. Absolutely.
Yeah. So you have to take care of yourself during these times. Yeah, and you're raising children. You're taking care of them, but sometimes you have to step away and take care of yourself. So we don't have to bring you back. We don't have to bring you back. I enjoyed this. This was actually fun.
Self-care is more than just a bubble bath, ladies and gentlemen. Sometimes it's having these conversations. This is self-care. Just learning about what you just asking questions and wondering from an internal perspective of like, why do I think the way I think? Just even starting there, and that's why our self-care series even encompasses mental health, because I think that's a huge part of it. So I'd love to come back and talk about that some more with you.
Cool. Again, thank you. Well, guys, that wraps up. That's it. That's the show. That's the show. And again, remember, without the conversation, we can't have the understanding. Thank you for being part of the conversation with Corinthus Alston, brought to you by CKJ Live. Come back and visit again to share more real-life topics and stories that matter to you. And remember, without the conversation, we can't have the understanding.